Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in this video, we are discussing on the ReactJs question and answers which were asked in Accenture. So all of the questions which we will be discussing in this video, they are based upon real interview experiences shared by candidate. So let's begin our video. Our first question is, what is the difference between section, article and aside? So before we discuss on the differences, let us try to understand what is the similarity between these tags, section, article and aside. What is the similarity? Similarity is that these tags are semantic tags. What are semantic tags? Semantic tags are the tags which provide their which convey their information that what is the use of this element or what is the use of this tag. So they convey their meaning to the developers and they also convey their meaning to browsers. And if we are making use of these semantic tags, it helps our application rank better in search engine optimization, and it is helpful for the people with disabilities also to understand that what this section or what this element is about. Also it is useful for the screen readers to analyze that what it has to give the voiceover to people who cannot see properly. So it's easier for people who have disabilities. So that is why we have to make use of semantic tags. So now we have discussed on what are semantic tags, what are different semantic tags. Here we have listed three. One is section, article and aside. Then we also have header, we have footer, and we have nav. And apart from this, there is main and fig caption. So these are few of the examples of our semantic tags. Let us see the difference between these three, because this question is asking difference between section, article and aside. So let us see the difference. Section, it groups the related content under a common theme. Okay, so it is similar to div. Whatever we used to do with div, it is similar, but one important fact here is it is used to group the related content. So for example, you can take newspaper example. So in newspaper we have different sections. We have entertainment section, we have international news section, we have national news section, we have sports news section. So there are different sections. So section is nothing but it is a container, it is a global container which you will be using to uh, group the common theme contents. So that is what our section conveys. Then we have article. What is article? It represents the independent piece of content. For example, a blog post. Okay, so article, it is going to represent an independent piece of content, and article can be present in a section. So section can enclose the article. Then we have aside. So aside is used for the side information like ads or related links or other examples. So aside is useful for that section, that for that element where it is not the main content, it is some side information given to the user. It is about subscribing, or it is about any information, or linking to some other website, or some extra like information about your website, or some information about what and all your organization does. So it is a side information. Now let us see example, how do we use it. So you can see example, we have section. Now what is this section representing? Section is representing that this all the content inside this section are of same theme. So you can see here we have news article and we have related ads. So in news section also we have ads, right? So you can see this section is related to news. Now we can also have different section for sports, we can have for entertainment, we can have separate sections. Then we see article. So what is article doing? It is independent piece of code like blog post or some news article or some article on some celebrity. So that articles can be present in this element. Then we have aside. So aside, you can see it is useful for the related ads related to that. So if you are in sports section, you will have the sports related ads. If you are in international news section, you will have some similar ads. So that is how aside works. That is what aside conveys. Now let's see our second question, that how would you make website accessible for the screen readers. So first thing is semantic HTML. We have to make use of the semantic tags, which we have discussed in previous video, previous question also, that semantic tags, they are helpful for the people who have disability, and it is useful for the screen readers also to convey the meaning. So what are screen readers? So screen readers are nothing but whenever you have logged in into any application, and you are giving tabbing, you are trying to access the elements of your website using tab index, then one by one your tab will go to every element, and then screen reader would read out that what this button is about, what this image is about, what this link is about, what will happen when you click on it. So that is screen reader. For example, NVDA is one of the screen reader, then we have Mac screen readers also. So we have to make use of semantic tag. First thing is we have to make use of semantic tag to make our website accessible. Also we have to make use of alt means alternate attribute for the images tag, so that in case images did not load, or even if it has loaded, the viewer, the person who is seeing your website is not able to see. If he is having disability or some issue with seeing, if he is making use of tab, then he can actually read, like screen reader would read out that this image is related to this. So that is the alternate attribute which you would give. Then you have area labels which you have to give, that what is the message you want to convey. If it is some generalized element like div or button, such things, then we have keyboard navigation, that is tabbing, so you have to give tab indexes. So if you're making use of some third party libraries like material UI or prime react, so they anyway support keyboard navigation, most of their components support keyboard navigation. So if it is not there, then we will have to make use of the tab index is equal to 0. That attribute will have to pass in our element. And always ensure that tab order and focus states are visible. So what are tab orders? See, for example, this is our application. Then if someone is having disability, he is not able to see, then how should this work? How should this screen work? So first your tab order should go to question, then it should go to answer, and then it should go to example. That is how he will be able to understand if he cannot see. It cannot be like first you're showing the example, then you're reading question, and then you're reading answer. This will confuse your uh, the client, whoever is visiting your application. This is going to confuse your users. That is why the tab order matters, that first it will be this, and then there will be next order, and then there will be next sequence. That is how you can read and make your user understand your application better. Also focus states should be visible. In case someone is having some issue, some slight issue with the eyes, and he's not able to see, then your focus should be visible. So what is focus? For example, your tabbing is here, you first pressed on tab, then tab has come to this question. It is good that your screen reader is reading this entire question, but also there should be something like highlight. There should be a highlight for this, that okay, this is being read, so that it is easier for them to understand that what part of our application are we with. So it is easier for them to analyze that what are we seeing, what is being read. So that focus should be there on every element. So focus can be like with the border. So most of the uh, if you see the components which you see which you use from the third party library, they anyway have the focus already done, but this is how the focus should be. So whenever your tab is with the question, it should be focused. When it is with the answer, it should be focused. And when it is with the example, then this one should be focused. So let us see the example here, how you can make your website accessible. How you can make your website accessible is, first thing is by, see, this is our button normal tag, where you have given that okay, this is cancel button, this is for closing the menu. There you can write area label close menu. So whenever your screen reader goes to this button, it is going to read close menu. Okay, because see, with image what happens, this is our image, normal image tag. Here you have source, here you have alt. So alt is a very commonly used attribute given to us in image tag. So in image you have alt, you can use. So whenever user visits your image is on, if he has pressed tab and he has come to image, he can read, he will get to know from screen reader that it is a user profile. But with other elements you don't have. With span you don't have alt attribute, with div you don't have. So there you can make use of the area label. Okay, so now we have discussed on how we can make our website accessible, that is through semantic tag or using alt attribute, area labels, and keyboard navigation. Now let's see our third question, that is what is the difference between relative, fixed, and absolute positioning in CSS. So let us see what is the difference between relative. Yeah, there was a mistake here, so I have corrected it. So difference between absolute, relative, and fixed we will be discussing now. So relative, absolute, fixed, they are positioning property which is there in CSS, which is helpful in positioning the element in your screen. So we will see relative. So what is relative? Relative is relative to its normal position. That is, if this is the place of your element and you make the position relative, and then you are giving some top left, then it is going to be relative to this y-axis and this x-axis. So it's relative to whatever its normal position is. And does it move with scroll? Yes, it moves with scroll. If you're having an element and you're scrolling to end of the screen, end of your application, then yes, it is going to move with the scroll. Example is offset within the parent. Then we have absolute. Absolute is relative to the nearest positioned ancestor. If not, if there is no nearest positioned ancestor, then it is relative to its viewport. So for example, we have one box here which for which we are giving absolute, and in case we have our one more bigger box container, this is relative or absolute or anything, any positioned ancestor. So this is relative and this is our absolute position box. So what happens if you give any left, right, or any property that from top it will be 0, left it will be 0, then it is going to get positioned according to its nearest positioned ancestor. So if you give top 0, then it will come and get sticked to the top because you have given top 0. If you give left maybe 50%, then it will come somewhere here in the middle. So it is going to position itself to the nearest based upon the nearest positioned ancestor. In case there was no positioned ancestor, suppose it is just normally box and then there is no positioned ancestor and this is our screen, then it is going to position itself according to our viewport, that is screen size. Okay, this is how absolute works. Does it move with scroll? Yes, it moves with scroll. Example, it is placed anywhere, it can be placed anywhere. Then we have fixed. Fixed is relative to the viewport. So with fixed, it is not related to its normal position or the nearest ancestor, it is always related to its viewport. The same example. And then does it move with scroll? No, it does not move with scroll. So wherever you have given the element with whatever top and left property, it is going to stick to your screen. So it is not going to move with your scroll. For example, we might have seen that whenever we visit some websites which try to sell their courses, they have their courses, then they have something like advertisement kind of section which is always sticked, and they keep giving us the information that this course is for this much amount. So that is how we make use of sticky. Also we have some chatbots. If you have visited some application, there is chatbot. So that chatbot also, the section, that container is actually using the property of fixed positioning. And example is stays even on scroll. These are the examples, and these are the syntax how you can use it. So you have to make use of like these are basically the class names for those boxes. So you can change it, it can be anything. So for relative, you can write position relative and you can give the top, and it is going to position itself relative to its normal position. Then we have absolute. Absolute box, these names and all you can change, this is not compulsory for you to use the same names. Then you have to give the position. Yes, you have to give the position as absolute, and top and left you can give. It is going to position itself relative to its nearest positioned ancestor. And then we have at last the fixed. Fixed is relative to the viewport. Now let's see our fourth question, that is what is the difference between Flexbox versus grid. So Flexbox versus, firstly, Flexbox and grid, they are useful for the layout structuring. They are useful for positioning our elements inside one box or inside one container. Now difference between Flexbox and grid is, Flexbox, it is helpful for one dimensional layout. So we can either position our rows or column at once. And with grid, it is helpful for two dimensional layout, that is we can position our rows and columns together. Flexbox is useful for simpler layouts, and grid is useful for complicated and complex layouts. It is best for aligning the item. Flexbox is best for aligning the item, whereas grid, it is best for the full page layout. Example, how do you use it? So for flex, you have to make your display flex. You have to write that display properties flex, and then you can give justify content center. With center, you have multiple things like space between, space evenly. Then you have flex start, flex end. So there are multiple properties which you can give to the flex justify content. Then we have grid. For grid also, you have to write displays grid. Then you can give grid template columns repeat 3 1 fr. 1 fr is nothing but one fraction. So what does this mean? Grid template column. So this means that whatever is the width of your screen, so there will be three columns. That is what repeat 3 means. So there will be 3 columns which will be equally divided. So the distance whatever is here, what is the width of these boxes, it will be equally divided. That is why we have written one fraction, that every box will have the similar fraction, similar width, and there will be 3 columns in your screen. So this is how you can make use of the grid layout structure. Now let's go to our fifth question, that is what is the difference between null and undefined. So difference between null and undefined is, for undefined, if you have declared any variable but you have not assigned any value yet, then JavaScript is going to assign it a value undefined by default. And null, it is explicitly assigned no value. So you are intentionally assigning a no value to your variable. So undefined you get when JavaScript is by default giving you value, and null is when you intentionally are assigning some value. Example is, you have declared some variable, let a, you have just declared, you have not assigned any value, and you have let b, and you have intentionally assigned that null, it is not going to have any value. So when you do console.log of a comma b, a becomes undefined. Why? Because JavaScript has given it a default value called undefined, and for b you will get the null. So null, why? Because you intentionally assigned the value null. Okay, so this is our fifth question. Now we will go to our sixth question, that is what is event delegation. So event delegation, it is helpful in attaching a single event listener to the parent instead of the many children, and it is useful for dynamic elements or the large DOM. So what does this mean? Suppose you are having multiple lists, you are having hundreds of the lists of the details of the student. So what you want to do, there will be some button corresponding to these lists. So whenever you click on these lists, whenever you click on this button to cancel or something, there will be, let us suppose that there is some remove button here corresponding to the students. So if you click on this remove button, cancel button, then these students, that particular student should get deleted from our list. Okay, so this is our functionality, and there are hundreds or thousands of students, so you cannot go and write your logic on every list items. How many times will you go and write the on click listener? So instead of that, what we can do, we will be having one parent of this uh, all the list. So what we can do, we will be assigning that on click listener to this parent, and we will check that wherever we have clicked, we will have anyway event dot target values of that list. So we can write our logic only once on the parent instead of writing it multiple times. So that is what is written here. It is useful for attaching this single event listener to the parent. So we are assigning that event listener to the parent instead of the many children, and it is helpful for the dynamic element. So if you are having, you have not hard coded any value, and you are getting these elements, maybe today it is 100, tomorrow it might be 1000, so we don't know the exact number, it is not static, it is dynamic. So it is useful for the dynamic element or the large DOM. So example, we will see how do we write it. We have to first write the document dot query selector list, hash list, which is we are selecting our the parent, we are selecting our parent element. Then we are writing add event listener, so we are attaching a event listener to the parent and not to the individual list item. Okay, so this is our parent, list is our parent, list item is our individual element. So we are attaching event listener to the parent, and we are saying that if there is any event of click inside this container, so this container will have multiple child element. So if there is any click in this container, then you will get the event of that. So if I clicked on the 10th list item, you will get that event, and then you will go and check that e.target.tag name, whether it is li, yes it is the list item. Then you are going to do console.log e.target.text content. So whatever is the text content, you are going to console that. Here you can write your logic of how to remove. So instead of writing your logic maybe 100 or 1000 times on every list item of how to remove, you can write your event listener to the parent, and you can like avoid writing your code multiple times. Now our seventh question is explain hoisting. So what is hoisting? Hoisting is nothing but JavaScript moves the declaration of the variable or of the function to top of their scope during compilation. So let us see an example. See, what are we doing here? We have declared our variable and we have initialized it with the value 10. But if you see in the line above this, so in the first line, what am I doing? I am trying to console the variable a. If you do the same thing in some other language like Java or C++ or C, what you will get? You will get a error that a is not defined yet. But in JavaScript, that is not the case. You are not getting any error. Instead of that, you are getting undefined as your value. So why do we get undefined? What happens is JavaScript during compilation, it is going to move the declaration of your variable or the function to the top of their scope. So this initialization, it is not hoisting, but the declaration is what is getting hoisted. So what happens is, whenever hoisting happens, your var a will come here to the top of their scope. So there is no initialization, but your declaration is hoisted. So what happens once you have declared your variable and there is no initialization, JavaScript is going to assign it value undefined by default for any variable. So you will get console.log of a, you will get answer as undefined. So this is with var. But with let and const, which were introduced in ES6, they are also hoisted, but they are in temporal dead zone. So you will get a error of reference error. So you will not get the error like this variable is not defined, you will get some other error of the reference error. But yeah, with var you can see the exact hoisting of how hoisting is happening. You don't get any error. With let and const, they are also hoisted, but they are in the temporal dead zone. Now let's see our eighth question. What is event loop, and explain the difference between microtask and the macrotask queue. So what is event loop? JavaScript executes synchronously. Our JavaScript is a single threaded language and it is executing synchronously. All your codes are executed synchronously. So event loop, it is helping to push the async tasks to the queue. So that is what is the use of event loop. And then we have microtask queue and we have the macrotask queue. In microtask queue, we have promises and process dot next tick, and it runs first. So microtask queue are having higher priority when compared to the macro task queue. And then we have the macro task queue. It is helpful, it is storing the set timeout and set interval. So how does our event loop works? So how our event loop works is, we will be having something called as call stack here. So in call stack, here is our line of code. There will be thousands of lines of code. So what happens, we will be having multiple lines of code. So all these codes are put in this call stack in LIFO order. So what is LIFO order? Last in, first out. So what does that mean? So whatever the code was put at last, that is going to get executed at first. That will be out of our call stack for execution at first. So this is how one by one all of our code is going to get into call stack. Apart from that, this is useful for the synchronous code. Okay, then we have something called as asynchronous code. So asynchronous code is always put in something called as queues. Okay, this is put in the queues, and in queues we have two parts, that is callback queues. We have two parts. First is microtask queue and the second one is macrotask queue. Previously there were only one, but now we have two. We have differentiated. So we have microtask queue and then we have macrotask queue. And then we have macro task queue. So in micro task queue, what do we have? We have promises and process dot next tick. And then in my macro task queue, you have set timeout and set interval. Set timeout and set interval. So promises always have higher priority. Microtask queue, whatever is there in microtask queue, always have higher priority when compared to the macro task queue. So what happens, there is something called as event loop here. This is our event loop. So event loop, what it does is, it is going to keep checking. It will keep checking the call stack, and it will keep checking the call stack, and it will see that if call stack is empty. In case it is empty, your call stack becomes empty, it is going to come to the callback queue and it will check, is there anything of priority to be done here? Is there any callback function to be executed? So it will see that yes, there is one promise in the micro task queue. So what will it do? It is going to take that promise and it is going to put it in the call stack, and from there once again your promise will go into execution and your code will be executed. Then again it will check is there anything left out. Then it will see that yes, there is one more promise, so again that promise will go to your call stack. Then once everything is finished in your micro task queue, then it will check that is there anything left in macro task queue now. So yes, there is one set timeout or some set interval left, so it is going to take the same. Again it is going to take that set interval function, callback function to the call stack, and then that is how your async code will get executed. Okay, so this is how your event loop works, and these are our micro task and macro task queue where your async tasks are stored. Example, you can see here we have set timeout. So if you give console.log with the macro and the time you have given is 0, then you have promises dot resolve dot then. So you have resolved your promise, and then once your promise is resolved, then you are handling the promise, and you're just writing console.log micro. So output, what will be the output? We have discussed previously that micro task queue, they have more priority, right? So whatever is the promises are stored in the micro task queue, so your answer will be micro first, then you will have macro. No matter you gave the time interval to be 0 and you have written your code also at first before promise, but still your promises will be executed at first because they are having more priority, and then your set timeout or set intervals will work. Now let's see our ninth question, which is what is closures. So closures, they allow the functions to remember the variable from its outer scope, and it is useful for data privacy, and it is also useful for making your variable private so that no one else can access it other than your inner functions. So here we see that we have one function called counter. We can see we have one function called counter, and this is our outer function. Okay, so what are we doing here? We have just initialized, declared and initialized one variable called count, and then we have returned a function. So this is what is the task of our outer function. So what is outer function doing? Outer function is just declaring a variable and it is returning. That is what it is doing. There is no extra work other than this of our outer function. So what have we done? We have just called outer function declared a variable, and it returned the function. So in this const inc, what will it store? It is going to refer to your this function. It is going to refer to your this function. So now again you have to call inc because it is a function, right? So you'll have to execute it. So you're executing the function, and then you have executed this function. Now your this code should be executed. But what is count plus plus here? What is count? In this scope we don't have anything called as count, right? Do we see anything called as count here in this scope? No, we don't have anything called count. Neither are we accepting anything called count from the parameter. Then what is this count? What will count plus plus do? It should give us error that this variable is not defined, this does not exist, or such error. But we don't get why. Because of closure, this count is going to refer to the variable which was declared in the outer function, in the outer scope, even though the outer function has returned. Our outer function has returned already, we are calling the inner function, but still we are able to access the variable which is there in our outer scope. This is called as closure. So we are able to remember the variable, we are able to access the variable from the outer scope. Okay, and what happens here? Now you will do 0 plus plus. So 0 plus plus, what will be 0 plus plus? 0 plus plus will be 1, so you get answer as 1. Then your count has become 1 now. So what will you do? 1 plus plus, which is 1 plus 1. What is 1 plus 1? 1 plus 1 is 2, right? So you can see answer is 2. That is what we are getting here. So this is how your closures work. So you can say closure, it allows the function to remember the variable from its outer scope even when your outer function has returned. That is closure. Now we will see our 10th question, that what is the difference between map, for each and reduce. So map, for each and reduce, they are array methods. I have already made a detailed video on top 30 array methods in JavaScript. So you can check that playlist too to understand different array methods. So we will be seeing the difference between map, for each and reduce in this video. So we will see we have method, we have return, and then we have purpose. So first is map, for each and reduce. So we will be seeing the difference. In map, what happens? It is going to return you a new array, and it is helpful for transforming your data. So with map, whatever is the length of your original array, that length of the new array you will get, and your new array will have some changes. There will be some transformation based upon your logic, whatever you have written. Coming to for each, it is not going to return you anything. It just returns you undefined. Also, it is useful for iterating only. It is not useful. You can transform, but it is not recommended to use. So transformation you have to do with map. and just for iteration purpose you can make use of for each. Then you have reduce. So reduce returns as a single value, and it is helpful for what is the purpose? It is helpful for accumulating the data. So you can have some kind of logic, and then you can accumulate the data and you can return that single value. So single value can be a number, it can be a string, it can be an object, but one single value is what you can return from reduce. Now let us see the code example. You have a original array of 1 2 3, and then you are writing math, and you are giving a callback function that take this n whatever you have, this is going to get replaced by the element of this array one by one. So 1 2 3, this is how it will be replaced. And then what are you doing? You are transforming your data as 1 into 2. So you are multiplying each element of your array by 2 into 2. So you get 2 4 6. This is how you will get the transformed array, and you get a new array here. Then you have for each. So for each is does not return you any value, right? It is not going to return you any value, it will just return you undefined. But you can use for each for iterating purpose. So you have original array, you are writing for each, and again you have to pass a callback function. And in callback function you can see I'm just iterating and trying to console the data of whatever we are getting in the array, like every individual element of the array I'm just trying to console it. I'm not doing any transformation logic here. So that is how you can use your for each. Then we have reduce. So what is reduce helpful for? So in reduce we have first syntax is like callback function, and in callback function there will be two arguments. First is the accumulator, and next we have the current value. So accumulator is nothing but this 0. You can give 0, you can give empty object, you can give string, empty string. So this is what your accumulator is. And c is nothing but your this b, which is your current value. So current value can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 3. So one by one that current value will get changed. So what are you doing? Your a initially accumulator is 0. So 0 plus 1, what is 0 plus 1? It is 1, right? So you got 1. Then your accumulator has become 1, you have stored your accumulator as 1. Then your accumulator here it has become 1, and what is next b value? It is 2. So 1 plus 2, what is 1 plus 2? It is 3, right? So your accumulator becomes 3, and then your current value, again current value will change to 3. So 3 plus 3, what happens with 3 plus 3? What is 3 plus 3? It is 6. So what is the answer you are seeing here? You are seeing answer as 6. This is how your reduce works. Now let's get into our 11th question. Remove group the duplicate values from an array. For this they might ask you to write a code. Share your screen and write code. So we will see how we can group the duplicate values from an array. So you will be given an array with the duplicates value apple, 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 so multiple times. So this can be anything which interviewer will give you. How you can use it is you can make use of the same reduce method of the array. So you are just writing input dot reduce, and then you have accumulator and you have item. So accumulator is something what you will be returning, and item is nothing but individual items of the array. Okay, then we have accumulator of the item is equal to accumulator of item or 0 plus 1. So how does it work? So let us suppose this is our accumulator. Okay, then what are we doing? Accumulate first item here, first item is apple. We are checking, do we have anything called apple here? Do we have anything called apple here? Accumulator of apple, is it there? No, it's not there. So it is false value. Then your or will get executed and it will become 0 plus 1. So you are now making accumulator of apple. Accumulator of apple will be what? It will be 0 plus 1, it is 1. 1 second. Your accumulator of apple has become 1. Now again you will come to banana. Is there anything called banana in our accumulator? No, there is nothing called banana in accumulator. Again, then accumulator of banana is 0, it is false value. Answer will be 0. 0 plus 1 of bananas will be 1. So again in your accumulator of banana, here accumulator of banana, you are storing value as 1. Then again you have come to apple. So is there anything apple? Now your item has is apple, right? So you're checking accumulator of apple. Is there anything called accumulator of apple? Yes, it's there. So you will have value 1 here. Then since it is a truthy value, this or doesn't matter. Then your answer will be 1 plus 1. What is 1 plus 1? It is 2. So you are coming and storing here 2 instead of 1. You will have value 2. And then again you will see orange. Is there anything called orange? No. So your value will become 1 here, similar to how we have done for apple and banana. Then next item is banana, so you will see, is there anything called banana? Yes, so 1 plus 1 will become 2. Then you have again apple, is there anything called apple? Yes, so 2 plus 1 will become 3. So this is your accumulator and this is your answer. Now console.log of count, when you do, you will get that individual value, one single value, that is object, and it will have apple 3, banana 2 and orange 1. So this is how you can group your duplicate values from an array. Now we will see our 12th question, that is what is the difference between useMemo and useCallback. So useMemo, useCallback, they are the hooks which is provided to us in React.js. Also they are helpful for performance optimization. That is why we make use of useMemo and useCallback. So we will see the difference. useMemo, so useMemo, it is useful for, it returns a memoized value, and use callback, it returns a memoized function. So it is useful, use memo is useful for memoizing the value and it is going to return you the memoized value, and use callback, it is useful for memoizing the function and it will return you a memoized function. Use cases, avoid recalculation. For use memo you can use when you want to avoid recalculation, and use callback you can use when you want to avoid recreating of the function. So let's see a example, code example. So use memo, use callback, they have similar syntax where you have to first argument is your callback function and second argument is your dependency array. So we will see the use memo first. So this is compute expensive, this is one function and it is going to do some very heavy task. It is going to compute, maybe on do the calculation on thousand or lakhs of the data. You cannot keep recalculating it. If your component is rendering more than 100 or 150 times, you cannot recalculate your logic for thousands of or lakhs of data again and again. It is going to add the latency to your application and it is going to affect your application's performance. So what are we doing here? We have written a dependency array that, see, in compute expensive we are passing some data, right, a comma b. So we are checking that in case this data changes, then only do the recalculation, else do not do any recalculation. So if your component is rendering without any change in the data, then what's the point of recalculating it again and again? So that is why we make use of use memo. It is going to memorize the value of whatever was the previous calculation. In case anything changes in a b, then do the recalculation. If it is not changing, don't do recalculation of that function, of the whatever logic you have written in function. That is how we use memo. Then coming to use callback, it is used to memorize the function. Why do we need to memorize the functions? What happens, you are having one parent component and you have one child component. So what happens, when does our component render, either the props of that child should change or parent renders, then our child will also re-render. Okay, this is how, there are two possibility, either props should change or parent renders, then again my child will re-render. But with callback, with the parent, if you're passing one function in props, okay, you are passing one function in props. So what happens in javascript, we know that functions are first class citizens, and functions, they are of object data type and they are not compared by value. Even though the function is exactly same, they are object after all. So these functions are always compared by their reference, and references of the objects are different, they are compared by reference. So they are always going to be different, they cannot be same even if the values are same, even if the definition is same of our functions. So that is why we call functions as first class citizens of the javascript, because they are of object data type, and object cannot be same even if everything is same, but their references will be different. So that is how, what happens is, whenever your parent component is rendering, it is going to pass the same function to your child component. But what will happen here, since the object, the function object is different every time, your child will also re-render. This is the problem which we were facing. That is why we have come up with the callback. So in callback, again you have to pass a function and then there will be dependency. So dependency is like, if there is any change in the parameter which we are doing, then only you have to create this function again, else do not create the function again. Pass the same reference of the function to the child component, so that my child doesn't re-render and it is not costing me the performance issue for my application. So that is why we make use of use callback, and use callback is helpful for avoiding the recreation of the function. Now let's see our 13th question. What causes React component re-renders and how to optimize it? We have discussed in previous question that re-render happens only when props or state change or parent re-render. So props or state, if there is any change in your component, it will re-render. Else if parent re-renders, then again your child will also re-render. We have discussed in previous question. How can you optimize it? You can optimize it by React.memo, or you can make use of useMemo, useCallback. These things we have seen in the previous question. But what is React.memo? React.memo makes your component memoized and it makes your component pure component. So what does that mean? It means that if you make use of React.memo, then whatever is your component, right? In this component, whatever is the props you're getting, it is going to do a shallow comparison that if props have changed, then I will re-render my component. If it has not changed, then I will not re-render it. So React.memo makes your component pure component and there will be shallow comparison of your props. Example, how can you write React.memo? You can just write export default and React.memo. So you have to wrap your component by React.memo, and that is how you get the memoized component. We will see our 14th question now. Explain React's reconciliation process and keys. So what is React's reconciliation process and what is the use of keys? So reconciliation in React, it is a process which is used to efficiently update the DOM, and it is only updating DOM when there are changes occurring in the application state or UI. So instead of re-rendering the entire UI, React identifies and updates only the part of DOM that have changed, ensuring optimal performance and consistency. So this is the definition which you can say. Now let us try to understand it line by line. What happens in React? We have some concept of virtual DOM. So what is virtual DOM? It is in memory representation of a real DOM, and which is a lightweight copy of a real DOM. So whatever changes are happening in your application, all the changes first will happen to the virtual DOM. Then there will be comparison between virtual DOM, your previous virtual DOM, and the new virtual DOM if there is any change. So this comparison is happening by diffing algorithm. So once there is any change which has happened in your virtual DOMs, previous virtual DOM and the current virtual DOM, so then React is going to take those changes and it is going to do those changes specifically in the real DOM, and this reduces the burden of doing all the re-rendering again and again. So all the changes will happen at once React has identified the changes in virtual DOM, so that changes will happen in your real DOM. That is what reconciliation means. So re-rendering of the DOM is called as reconciliation, but through the diffing algorithm via virtual DOMs. So let us read the definition again. If we have understood the concept, reconciliation in React is a process used to efficiently update the DOM. So we are not just seeing that okay, some changes happened and we are updating the real DOM. No, we are efficiently updating. And how are we efficiently doing that? By the algorithm, by virtual DOM what we are using. And when are we doing changes? When changes occur in application state or UI. So if the changes are occurring in application state or UI, we are efficiently trying to manage and then we will update the DOM. And instead of re-rendering the entire UI, React identifies and updates only parts of the DOM. So we are not doing all the changes again and again in the real DOM because it is costlier to do the re-rendering. So React is going to identify that what is the update. How is it going to identify? By virtual DOM. It is going to identify the updates and the changes via virtual DOM, and then it is going to update only those parts, those changed parts in the DOM uh, that have changed, and it is ensuring the optimal performance and consistency. So this is the advantage of our reconciliation. And what about keys? They might ask you, interviewer might ask you about keys. So keys is helpful. If you have any wrong or missing key, it leads to extra re-render. So if you're making use of dot map method to render your list, you should always give key attribute, else you'll get a warning. So if you don't give, it will lead to extra re-render. That is why we have to always give the key, so that React is able to identify that which new extra element got added, which got modified, which got updated, so that all the reconciliation happens properly and only that one element or one list item is getting updated rather than our whole element or whole hundred and thousands of list being updated. So that is the importance of keys. Now we will see our 15th question. What is prop drilling and how to avoid it? So what is prop drilling? Passing the props through many layers unnecessarily. So let us see example that we have one component here, then we have one more, maybe we have 5 levels of component, one by one child component. So first there is parent, then there is child, then that child is having one more, and then that child is having one more component. So this is how our hierarchy is flowing. Okay, So this is parent and this is child. Now again, this is parent to this child, this is parent to this child, and this is parent to this child. So this is how our hierarchy is working. Let us suppose that we have one data called as count, okay, and we have stored it here, but I want to show it here, I want to show it in the last component. So how will you pass it? You cannot pass it directly if there is no connection between these things. This component is only connected to this parent, and this component is only connected to its parent, and similarly likewise, and this component is connected to this parent, right? You cannot use the count from the ancestor to this component, because there is no direct connection, there is only single connection. So what happens, what you have to do, you have to pass props from here to you here, then you have to pass to next, and then next, and then next component. So there is passing of props through multiple layers. This is called as prop drilling. Even if, see, was it required, was count required here? But no. But why did we pass count in props here? Then again here we have passed again. This makes our code complicated and difficult to understand. That is why we have prop drilling, where we are passing, we are not passing the data in multiple layer. We have to make use of some methods called as context API or Redux. So Redux is a global state management library. It is a third party library which we can make use of, or we can make use of the context API. And context API, it is given to us directly in React. It is not some third party library. So how do we define it? We can write theme context.provider, in which we can give value theme, and then we can write the child. So whatever all the childs of our component, of our app component, can access this value called theme. They need not pass all the variables one by one. So this is how you can avoid the prop drilling. Now let us see our 16th question. Explain the Redux flow. So how Redux works? In Redux we have something called as actions. We have multiple actions here. So for example, we are having some application which is going to show you user details, which is going to show you delivery details, which is going to show you order details, feedback details. So what do we want to see in our screen? So if we click on, we want to see my customer details, so you will dispatch a action called as view customer. Okay, so there will be different action for different purposes. What is the intention behind it? So for Redux, we have to for Redux, like Redux is a state management library. It is third party library. Also you can say it is helpful in storing the data globally, so that you need not pass the props again and again, and you can fetch it from any place. So what hooks do we use here for dispatching the action? We make use of use dispatch hook of our React. So once actions are dispatched, so these are our actions. Once actions are dispatched, it will go to the reducer. So what are reducer? Reducers are the functions, and which will accept the data from store, and it else it will accept the apart from your store data, it will also accept the action type. That what is the action? Do we want to see user? Should I call user? Should I save the data of user? Or should I get the data of delivery? What should I store? So that logic is written in your reducer, that what is the intention and how we have to store the data. Also, what will be the structure of data? All these things are stored in our reducer, and once all the changes are done, it is going to get stored in a global container called store. So from here you will have all the data of reducer, you will have the data, you will have the data of user, you will have the data of order, of the delivery, of other stuff. So you will have multiple, like feedback, you will have multiple users data or customer data. So all the data of your application is stored in store. So let us see an example, that we have one more screen where we want to show some other data of how many customers have ordered, how many uh, orders, how many orders have they done, how many deliveries have they received. So if we want to see any data, we need not get the data from some other component. What we can do, we can directly subscribe to the store and we can get this data. Let us suppose there is one more component. There are some 50-60 component which are trying to access some parts of data, like when was the delivery done. So here we have whole date of delivery, right? We can just fetch the dates and we can share in this component that when was delivery done. So this component can also subscribe to the store, and from this store it is going to access the data. So there is no passing of props in multiple layers. So which here they have to actually make use of the hook called as use selector hooks given to us by React. So which hooks do they use? They make use of the use selector hooks to subscribe to the store. So this is how our Redux flow works, and this is the cycle. Now again, if there is some change here in this, like cancel or like remove the order, then again it is going to dispatch one action, and then action is going to read user, and then it will get stored in the store. And then again, whatever are the component who have subscribed to the store, they will get the latest data. There is no delay in passing the latest data. So all of the components who have subscribed and are in DOM, they are being rendered, they will get the latest data. That is how our Redux flow works. Let us see. UI dispatches the action. This is the first flow. UI is dispatching the action. Then reducer updates this store. So once action is dispatched, it will see in reducer what kind of data do we want. It is going to update your store. And then store notifies the subscribed component. So store is going to notify the subscribed component. It is going to give the latest data to every component. Then UI re-render. So UI is going to re-render anyway. So one way data flow is action, reduces, store, and UI. This is how your Redux flow works. But yeah, this is the flow. Sometimes they also ask about what is Redux. You can say that Redux is a state management library. It is third party library. It is helpful for storing the data in one place globally so that all components can reuse it again and again. Okay, so this is about our Redux, and this is the code how you have to write the, how you have to configure the Redux. So you have to import the configure store from the Redux.js toolkit. So from, this is third party library, you have to import configure store, and in configure store you have to write the reducer from root reducer. So there, it is not like there will be only one reducer. For example, we have multiple actions. Similarly, we will have multiple reducers to store the customer, to store the order, to store the delivery. So what you can do, you can combine all of these 50-60 reducers into one reducer called as root reducer, and that root reducer you can give here, and that from there root reducer all the updated data will be stored in your store. This is how you configure your store. Then how do you dispatch action? So you make use of the use dispatch hook, and then you can dispatch with the object, and you can give the type that okay, add to do, delete to do, or other steps, the type, what is the intention of action, why are you clicking on that button, that type you can give. And then you can give the payload, that if there is any data, you can give that payload. Mostly we pass the API details here, API data. Then this is how you dispatch. Then this is our reducer. As I have said, that reduces their function, they accept a state. If from the store, if it is there, well and good. If not, we are just assigning it value 0. Then it accepts the action, that what is the type of action, what should I do. Then it is going to check action dot type, whether it is increment, or is it add to do, or is it remove to do, it is decrement. Whatever is the type, accordingly it is going to have its logic, and how it is going to store the data in your store. The structure of the store, everything is decided in reducer, and you're returning the state, and then this state from reducer, it will go and get stored in your global container called store. So this is how you write your reducer function. Yeah, so we have discussed on all the questions which were asked in Accenture interview. In case you found this video to be helpful, then do give a like to this video. Also subscribe to the channel. And if you have any feedback or comments, then do let me know in comment section. If you want me to make video on any other topic, or any, if you have any suggestion, then you can let me know that on what topic next video I should be making. So your support motivates me to make more such content. So stay tuned. We will be back with some other video again. So thanks for watching everyone.